Good evening to everybody, and thank you so much for joining me live again tonight at 7 o'clock. Tonight is the second night of a series of three, where I am presenting to you some wonderful ideas. I hope that you all think them as wonderful ideas. Last night, we discussed how to boost your willpower, and we questioned, was willpower even something that we need to address? Was it something that we need to take off the table? Is it something that we are not really needing in our lives? And we discussed a few ideas, which I'm going to recap for you. Tonight, we are going to go more into how to overcome the inner saboteur. And this is a topic for me, which I find always exciting. And tonight, I am going to share my screen with you so that you can see an image of what I want to describe, so that it can really play out well for you and you can try and solidify some of the concepts that I'm going to take you through tonight in your mind. And then tomorrow night, we are really going to get more into the nutrition side of how to nourish your body over the age of 40. And I'm going to give you some of my top tips that I share with my one-to-one clients and my participants of the Wellness Upgrade, which is my online program, which I'll also tell you a little bit more about tomorrow night. So I'll introduce myself for those of you who I'm not sure if you were on the call last night, and for those who are watching live. And I don't know if you can hear my dog barking in the background. I certainly can. Hopefully that's not interfering. So I'm going to introduce myself, and then we're going to go on to a recap from last night, and then we're going to get into everything tonight that I want to cover with you. And I'm going to do my best to keep it to half an hour, because I know that your time is short. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for those of you who are showing up live for the second time. And my name, for those of you who are on for the first time, is Justine Friedman. As I said last night, I have been working as a clinical dietitian and a mindset mentor now for 23 years. And my process of changing how I work from being very much more strict according to portion size control and calorie counting has really evolved a lot more into giving my clients the ability to really understand and appreciate how their body functions, specifically for women over 40, and make choices more in line with what their body needs, as well as really get to grips with some of the mindset tools that can give you sustainable results. Because the stumbling block that so many people have is on trying to be good, trying to be restrictive, trying certain diets. But the minute that you are having a Shabbos meal or having emotional triggers in your day or normal life stresses, if you are traveling, that's another big one that a lot of people have issues with. All of a sudden, you're not in your own environment and you can't control the food that was given to you. You're eating out perhaps. You have, I know Josie's got a daughter's birthday coming up. You have food around in the house that maybe you don't normally keep around. And now you feel like, how are you able to control yourself from not diving into all of those things which are normally trigger foods for you, or things that you're just feeling out of control with? So last night we discussed with trying to understand what willpower really is and if we really need it, that the best way to support yourself to make positive changes is to do it within a structure and to build a plan that you can stick to, that you can work with, but not a long-term plan, something that you can address day by day in order to really feel that you are succeeding, that you are successful at what you are trying to achieve. Because when you, first of all, try to do too much too soon, and that's another big area that I go into in a lot more detail within my one-to-one coaching and in my group program, is really understanding how the brain functions and why it is so hard for the brain to take on more than one habit or one small thing at a time. So we want to focus on doing less, not doing too much, focusing on getting one small thing right without feeling like you have to do everything perfectly. So one of my biggest mottos is that we want to focus on progress and not perfection. And when we are focusing more on good progress and not perfection, then we don't need this willpower, this white knuckling of trying to resist these urges that are sometimes very overwhelming for us. So the exercise I gave you yesterday, and I really appreciate all of you who sent me wonderful messages on the group chat today. It was a great and interactive group chat of what was good for you, what worked for you, what your good takeaways were, and how you were able to feel so proud of yourselves and so successful in making more nourishing choices or stopping yourself from doing a behavior that would normally have been something that you just did, having that block of chocolate with your morning coffee, or having that biscuit with a cup of coffee, or going to the shops and rewarding yourself for having a hard day. And that's something we're going to go into a little bit more detail with tonight, because this inner saboteur is very good at making you feel that you deserve to treat yourself and you deserve to have everything that you want because you've had, what are the lists? You can type in the chat for me. What are the excuses that this lovely saboteur comes along and says? You've had a hard day. I'll give you an example of my day today. I drive to the shops. I hate doing shopping. I really should invest in online shopping. And the 5 shekel coin that we keep between the seats to go and get the agala, the trolley to go shopping with, is not there. Why? Because the car was serviced on Monday and my husband took the money out, and now I've blocked off time to go and shop. I get there and there's no 5 shekel coin. So I have to go to a different shop than I want to get the groceries, who tell me when I walk in the shop and I'm halfway through that they're only accepting cash because there's no credit card facility that's working at the moment. So it was one of those days where I could have stopped on any of the aisles and picked up my favorite, a jar of Nutella, because I now have had a hard day and I deserve to eat it spoon by spoon. So that inner saboteur really comes along to say, shame, my baby, you're having a hard time. Don't worry. You can, I went to gym, exactly, Simon. I went to gym so I can have, you can have this. Or what else does your inner saboteur say? You got through a stressful meeting, you sat in traffic, you just had a normal day that you had to get through. So when we feel that we are using food as a reward for getting through hard things, it is something that ends up tripping us up. But that voice of that shame, my poor baby, inside of us is not working in isolation. And I want to introduce you tonight to this dynamic that for me was groundbreaking in helping my clients to really turn a corner. Josie, excellent. It doesn't even help when you have that, because you actually are going against what you want. And the truth is, I'll get on to what I want to now. The truth is, when we eat something that we think we want in the moment because we are feeling, whether it's because we want to numb a feeling or soothe ourselves or reward ourselves, it doesn't even help. It doesn't take away that frustration that we were feeling, or the anger, or the whatever it happens to be. Okay, so tonight I'm going to introduce to you, let me share my screen. Where am I? If you see my computer, you'll see I've got a million tabs open everywhere. So now let's go to share screen. Okay, and I'd love you to all give me a thumbs up or let me know in the chat that you can see what I am showing you. Okay, excellent. Right, this lovely upside down triangle, with gratitude to a friend of mine who is a coach in South Africa and introduced this to me. And I've taken the theory behind it and amended it to what I feel works the best when it comes to our food choices. So tell me if you recognize this dynamic. You decide you are feeling uncomfortable in your body. You do not like the way you are looking. Your clothes are not fitting you anymore. Some of your clothes still fit you, but they're a little bit tighter. You're tired of feeling low in energy, and you really are desperate to make a change. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Right, okay. So when we are trying to make serious changes and we get so down on ourselves, there is a part of us that jumps into action. That is a voice inside of us that says, right, we're going to do this. We are going to be strict. You are never going to eat carbohydrates again. You are never going to eat chocolate again. You will never eat biscuit again. You will never have another bureka. Give me some ideas of what your voices are telling you. A knedel, soup nuts. What else? Type in the chat. I'd love to hear. What is that strict voice telling you you will never, ever have again? Anybody? Okay, I'll wait for it to come up. Okay, so what is so challenging about this is that we really believe that we can do it. We really want to believe that we can do it. So we sit up here, can you see in the top corner, in a very critical and strict space and a very judgmental space of what we believe we need to do in order to get to our goal. So if the goal is very far away, then we know that we have to do it for a very, very long time. Sometimes our goal may be a little bit shorter. I have people coming to me saying, I've got a wedding in a month's time. Can you help me lose 5 kilograms in the next month? I know I can do it. All I need to do is stop eating carbohydrates, do this, and I need you as a policeman to make sure that you're weighing and measuring me to make sure that I get it done. Okay, so there is this very strict disciplinarian voice that takes control in order to try and motivate us to get to our goals. Sounding familiar? Right. I'd love you to try and put a face or an image to this voice inside your head. What does she look like? Can you think of what that part of you could look like? I'll give you an example of what mine looks like. Like a strict school teacher. In South Africa, we had these strict school teachers who wore their hair back in a very hard bun, like gelled back, with glasses and a stick or a ruler. For me, that is the image that I think of when I start going in my own head into this critical, strict, judgmental, restrictive voice or side of my personality. Okay, so she's decided there's no more carbs, there's no more this, you're only eating lettuce leaves. Let's go for the rest of your life. Okay, and maybe she can keep you very strictly on the straight and narrow for a period of time. In general, over the age of 40, I think she lasts a few hours. She doesn't necessarily last for longer than that. And why not? Okay, so even if she goes for longer than that, what happens is that right down here on the bottom of this triangle, tell me if you can see it, we have this little inner part of ourselves, this little inner child, wounded part of us, that when we get offended, overwhelmed, angry, we start looking for instant gratification. I want you to picture your child when they were younger, if you are much older, or a young child that you may have now, who is digging their heels in and having a tantrum and wants to get their way. Can you imagine that? Can you picture that going on? So that when you say, I deserve to have the chocolate, the cake, the whatever, to reward myself for getting through the day, it is generally that child part of ourselves, that overwhelmed, depleted, angry, frustrated part of ourselves that is jumping up and down and getting our attention, screaming a lot louder than all of a sudden that very strict voice. And maybe the strict voice is still there going, oh no, here she goes again. What am I going to do? How am I going to control her? And like any mother who feels embarrassed in a shop full of people when their child is having a tantrum, what do we do? Or what do we do when we feel the pain of a child who is so desperate and so overwhelmed? We rush to nurture them. We rescue them. Here in this other top corner, we start to feel sorry for them. And when we start to feel sorry for them, and we want to rescue them, and we want to nurture them, what do? We give in. We say, have the chocolate. We say, have a little bit more. It'll make you feel better. It'll make it all good again. And in this whole dynamic, which plays out over and over again, we are always in a reactive mode. We are not thinking logically. We are not thinking in a more level-headed way. Perhaps we think we are when we jump back to being very critical and strict. Because the minute that the rescuers come in and gives that little child who's so overwhelmed and depleted and frustrated and feeling out of control, the food to eat that it really wanted, all of a sudden that very strict judgmental part of ourselves, all of a sudden starts making us feel what? Guilty, shameful, like self-loathing, disgusted that we gave in again when we had promised ourselves that we were not going to do that. So this dynamic that plays out time and time and time again is what is going on inside of you when you are flipping through from wanting to make a change, wanting to stick to a diet, wanting to stick to making better choices, but then feeling overwhelmed and depleted and frustrated and having that little child tantrum on you, and then the rescuer stepping in who feels sorry for you, who gives you the food that you want to make you feel better, to only jump back into the critical mind where you're lying awake in bed at night going, what on earth did I just do? I can't believe I did it again. And tomorrow I'm going to wake up and maybe I'll skip breakfast and I'll try intermittent fasting and I'll try keto and I'll cut out the carbs because that is what I believe, or I've been told is the way to go about it. So what I would like to share with you now is how to take a step out of this and how to, through this arrow, start to speak to a more adult, more mature, more wise part of yourself. So I'm going to stop my screen, I'll stop my share, okay? And I'm going to now give you some ideas of how this could potentially play out. When you think of yourself as a mature, loving, caring, wise parent, when a child comes to you who's in obvious pain and who needs support and guidance and who wants to feel better, do you give them something to eat? Okay, I know we're all Jewish women here and we probably have chicken soup brewing on the stove and we have a stash full of things. But if you know that your child needs to learn a valuable lesson and needs to be able to manage those very difficult emotions and that overwhelm in the most mature way possible, do we just provide a temporary consolation like a band-aid over a gaping wound? Or do we speak to that child and give it reassurance and reflect back what it was feeling? Perhaps say, wow, you've had a really hard day. It sounds that that was very difficult for you. How are you feeling? Can you tell me how you were feeling? Are you feeling angry? Are you feeling sad? Would you like to share with me why you're feeling that way? This is a dialogue that you can start to have with yourself. And when you are able to start to self-reflect over why the overwhelm is there, why the depletion is there, why the anger, frustration, lack of control, whatever it happens to be. I think all of us on this call have made Aliyah. Yes, type in the chat. Every single one of us has moved from one country to another. And this, for me personally, and I'm sure you all experience it, I feel like I'm still settling. It's only just over 3 years that I'm here. There are people that have been here for even shorter than me. There are people that have been here for longer than me. And I strongly believe that this is a very difficult and challenging move that you make. And part of the dynamic that we deal with making Aliyah is learning everything again. And we feel like these lost children. We feel like these children who are unsupported, and yet we are adults and we need to be mature about what we are doing. But there is this part of us inside of us, and especially during COVID, post-COVID, and everything that we've had to deal with that we feel so much more depleted on a daily basis. Add to that the changes over the age of 40 with all the hormones and everything that we experience, and you are now have an added dimension of lower energy levels, brain fog as well, hot flashes, night sweats, memory loss, waking up in the middle of the night, not sleeping well, changes to your menstrual cycle, and weight gain. And that inner child is so very overwhelmed, so completely overwhelmed, that all it wants all the time is what? What does she want? You can type in the chat. I'd love to hear. So when I first made Aliyah, and I mean, this is something that for me threw me completely, of course, Vanessa, comfort food. When I came to Israel, and for the first time, I thought, right, I've really got the dietitians admitting this, my eating under control. My entire life, I've had a very rocky relationship with food, with weight gain as a teenager. I've been through this whole cycle of deprivation. Yes, dealing with the Israeli medical system. Not only you had a hard time this morning with them. So I went through cycles of exactly this deprivation, then the not managing to maintain it, the overeating, the binge eating as a result of it, and this whole dynamic that makes you feel so out of control and so uncomfortable within your body. You don't even want to be living inside of yourself because of all these different thoughts that are going on. That child just wants to be heard. And what I want to suggest to you tonight is, instead of feeling like you need to divorce yourself from all these different aspects of yourself, is actually taking an opportunity to be able to reflect and understand why you are going through what you are going through. Because the truth is that hard feelings only want to be expressed. They don't want to be suppressed. Yes, they are hard to deal with, but at the end of the day, we are able to be more mature about accepting the hard feelings that we are going through. We will slowly reduce the emotional need to be eating that our inner saboteur is trying to convince us will make everything better. There are so many other aspects to what this inner saboteur does. It is not only in relationship to giving into foods that you want to be eating. It also comes in with, for example, doing really, really well on a meal plan, or if you've done any diets in the past and lost a lot of weight and managed to get to your goal or be close to your goal and get there, and all of a sudden get a fright that you're now where you were wanting to be, and all of a sudden you are self-sabotaging and eating everything again that you haven't been eating, and turn tail and run back, and all the weight slowly gains back or quickly gains back. When you have beliefs about how you relate to food, what you believe about yourself with your relationship with your body. We dealt with this a few weeks ago in the wellness upgrade, and Simon, you can remind me which week it was now. where we were discussing about, or maybe it was even in a one-to-one call, we were discussing how the language that you use to describe your process is also so critical, because when you are using language like, my weight is a losing battle. I had somebody say on the call to me the other day, I generally am quite good with not eating too many carbs, but there are days that the carbs win. I'm always battling not eating too many carbs, but when they win, oh my goodness, then I eat everything in sight. How are you speaking to yourself about the process that you are trying to achieve? When you're getting to your goal, is it because you don't know how to be that new person? And because of that, because we don't recognize ourselves anymore, in fact, it's very interesting in work that I was doing in South Africa with patients who had been through bariatric surgery, very often, and they lose massive amounts of weight, very often their closest relationships with family members and friends change drastically, and sometimes even break down, because the person that they are now in this different body does not feel like the same person that they always were. So even within ourselves, sometimes getting to a goal and maintaining it, there is a disconnect between who we believe ourselves to be, what we believe we deserve, and who we all of a sudden are. And because that is also so uncomfortable for us, it is so normal for people to gain weight again. I don't know if it's happened to any of you, but I'll never forget, like specifically in South Africa, and I think for me it was more apparent when I was battling my own body image issues and the relationship with food. If somebody came up to me and said, wow, you look like you've lost weight, even if I hadn't really, I would go and eat. Have any of you ever experienced that? It makes no sense. Here somebody's saying and giving you a compliment that you look like you've lost weight. Surely that's something that I would really want. Why on earth would I go and do the complete opposite? Because we don't identify ourselves with that person that person's identifying. We don't identify ourselves with that. And that is another aspect to the inner saboteur, which I could go on and on for another 2 hours speaking about. And I think each of you individually have your own story and your own dynamic that needs so much investigation and so much attention paid to in order to break the cycle. In order for you, that I spoke about this last night on the call, for you to feel like you can live alongside all of these different parts of you without them all vying for attention and screaming loudly. We don't want the child to scream loudly. We don't want the rescuer to scream loudly. And we don't want the critical and judgmental part of ourselves to scream loudly. We want that adult, mature part of ourselves to come out and to say, right, let's make a choice that is going to be for your best interests. And I'm going to go back to what I described last night. Make a choice now that will be in line with the outcome you want to achieve after this meal. So if you want to feel energized, if you want to feel confident, if you want to feel good, if you want not to have brain fog, if you want to sleep better that night, if you want your energy levels not to slump after a meal, then use that adult, that mature part of yourself to make the decision before you start eating. And in that way, you will make better choices and you will start to break this pattern and the cycle that is going on inside of you, which is exhausting, which is frustrating, makes you feel out of control. So each of you have a different dynamic at play here. And I would love to be able to unpack each of it and workshop it all for you, but we are almost done with our time for tonight. So what I want to share with you, and I want you to know that this is really the tip of the iceberg, what I'm sharing with you tonight. It is the most empowering and practical tool to be able to start playing around with, but there are many layers to it. And I highly advise you to have support in breaking these steps down, to be able to feel that you are addressing each of the different aspects and how it fits into your food journey, how it fits into your story that you want to be telling about yourself and that you want to identify with. That's one of the last week in the Wellness Upgrade program that we're coming to with my group of participants in 4 weeks' time, is all about rewriting the story of who you identify with, who you want to be, the language that you want to use about how you describe your relationship with food, your relationship with your body, your relationship with yourself. Josie had put a question in the chat, and I'm going to stop for tonight. I just want to mention that I will obviously put this recording up. Thank God it looks like it recorded okay tonight. Tomorrow night, I'm going to go into more detail about the nutrition side of things. And we are going to look at how you can just level up a little bit on what you are doing. I really wish I could give you all my tools and tricks of my trade, but that is for a different platform. So if there are any questions that you have for me, if anything that I have discussed with you in the last 2 nights has resonated with you and you want to go a little bit deeper, you want to find out a bit more about what your process could look like, I'm going to also put in our chat and in the WhatsApp group chat just a link to my calendar, and you can book a complimentary call with me, so we can take it one step further if any of you are interested in that. So I am going to unmute you all. Josie, I want you to just, I think you should be able to, hope you'll be able to unmute yourself. Josie, if you can just remind me what that question was, because I can't go back into the chat to have a look now. Are you able to unmute?
Josie's question was, is it an immediate feeling or is it something for the future?
Okay, so that feeling in that moment is more immediate, or what you've eaten after the meal. So like we're just expanding on what we were discussing last night, that this is, if I want to make a decision of what I'm eating now, how will that impact me in an hour's time, knowing what I still have to do for the day? Has anybody else got any questions?